My husband forced me to quit medicine to care for our paralyzed daughter, then bragged to his bosses that he was doing it all alone. When I finally opened up about feeling invisible, he smirked and said, "As soon as Alyssa lost her ability to function, so did you." I just stared at him. That was 3 years ago. This morning, he was standing outside my hospital, limping, jobless, and begging security to let him in. Me and my 5-year-old daughter were on the bus when it crashed into a pole and paralyzed my daughter from the neck down, and it should have been me, but for some reason, I let her have the window seat. Luckily, my husband had a pretty good job in a law firm, so I was able to quit and be a full-time caretaker for Alyssa. I was a medical intern with 8 years of medical school, so giving up everything I had worked for wasn't easy. I always wished my husband would help out or at least throw out a thank you every now and then, but I pushed the thought away because he never let us struggle financially. Fast forward 4 years later, when my husband told me he was hosting a work function at our house. It was to impress his higher-ups to increase his chances for a promotion. He said I was only allowed to come if I pretended that he was the only one who took care of Alyssa. This seemed a little strange at first, but still I accepted because a higher income for the house meant Alyssa would have a better life. The weeks leading up to it were draining, to say the least. My husband was examining every little detail, as if having the wrong napkin color or flower pot would stop him from moving up in the company. And during all of it, I would hear Trevor on the phone bragging about how well he's managing a disabled daughter while organizing a function and working a full-time job. This made me spark up on the inside, but I just kept reminding myself of how amazing it will be to send Alyssa to college with no student loan debt. In the days leading up to the function, my husband had hyped up how much effort it was taking him that they ended up cutting his workload in half. He used his new time to watch recorded NBA games from the 1980s. Well, I had always told myself that Trevor would step up if not for his workload, but now I was seeing his true colors. Fast forward to the big day. Trevor had bought me a beautiful blue Ralph Lauren maxi dress that must have cost around $2,000. It didn't make up for the resentment I felt in my stomach, but I did feel somewhat pretty. As for Alyssa, I had used my savings to buy her a Dior pink and glittery dress. She smiled when she saw herself in it, and that made me smile too. As more people came flooding in, I noticed everyone was referring to me as Trevor's wife instead of my name, but everything else was going smoothly, so I just ignored it, until there was a lull in the conversation, because Trevor would use me to fill the silence. You know, Sally over here doesn't even work. She just sits back, watches me take care of Alyssa, and spends her entire day reading mom blogs on Pinterest. The men were laughing, while the women were giving me dirty looks. I felt my face flush with embarrassment, but just reminded myself that Trevor would say anything to get the promotion for our daughter. But Trevor kept going. She doesn't even know how to take care of our daughter. As soon as Alyssa lost her ability to function properly, so did my wife. Soon everyone was keeled over laughing while Trevor called me lazy, useless, a bad mother, and hopeless, all in the form of a joke. But then came my breaking point. In fact, if she had chosen to sit in a different seat on the bus that day, then Alyssa might still be normal. I looked over at Alyssa, expecting her to be sad or even angry, and she was angry, but not at me. It was at Trevor. Her index finger twitched slightly. I was confused because this was usually something she only did when something was wrong. My daddy is lying. Mommy does everything for me. She knows all my medicines. Daddy doesn't know my purple medicine or my yellow medicine. He doesn't know how to make my breathing better. Mommy stays with me all day. She reads Goodnight Moon 17 times if I want. The room stilled. Mommy loves me no matter what. No one's allowed to be mean to her. Trevor's mouth was opening and closing like a fish out of water. His higher-ups stared at me with a newfound respect. Soon everyone was coming up to me and congratulating me on being an awesome mom. Except things didn't finish there, because Trevor had taken Alyssa standing up for me as a reason to destroy our family. Trevor immediately filed for divorce, claiming I was an unfit mother who emotionally manipulated our disabled daughter. He moved into the guest room and started documenting every moment I left Alyssa's side, even for bathroom breaks. He hired his law firm colleague Melissa as his divorce attorney, who suggested Trevor should start doing some caregiving tasks to build his case. When Trevor attempted Alyssa's morning routine, he accidentally pulled her feeding tube partially out, causing her distress. I fixed it, but Trevor deleted the security footage and told his lawyer I sabotaged him. Melissa filed an emergency custody motion, claiming I was teaching Alyssa to lie and denying Trevor access to provide care. The court ordered a custody evaluation. The evaluator, Diane, seemed sympathetic to me at first, but Trevor charmed her during his interview, claiming I had Munchausen by proxy and kept Alyssa sicker than necessary. Trevor started intercepting my calls with Alyssa's doctors and changing appointment times, so I missed them, then documented my absences. He befriended the night nurse Brenda by bringing her expensive coffee, and she started reporting to him about my caregiving. I discovered Trevor had been slowly transferring money from our joint accounts and hiding assets, while maxing out credit cards in my name. When I confronted him, Trevor recorded only my angry reaction, not his admission. Alyssa's condition worsened from the stress and required hospitalization. Trevor told the hospital social worker that I caused this by creating a hostile home environment. The social worker, Jason, began investigating. My sister Lauren offered support, but Trevor threatened her job at the school district where his friend was superintendent. Lauren backed away. Trevor hired a private caregiver named Bethany, claiming he needed help since I was unstable, but Bethany was actually documenting everything to make me look negligent. I realized Bethany was leaving Alyssa in soiled diapers longer to make me look bad when I discovered them. The custody evaluator recommended shared custody with Trevor having weekends. During his first weekend, Trevor left Alyssa with Bethany while he golfed. Alyssa developed severe pressure sores. I documented them, but Trevor claimed they were pre-existing, and I was framing him. Trevor's firm promoted him using his dedicated single father story. He announced engagement to Melissa, shocking everyone. I discovered Melissa and Trevor were having an affair for 2 years before the work function. Trevor filed to modify custody seeking primary placement, claiming I was vindictive about his new relationship. I represented myself in court as I could not afford a lawyer. I started recording everything legally. During a custody exchange, Trevor told Alyssa that mommy was trying to take her away from daddy. Alyssa had a panic attack requiring emergency intervention. Hospital records showed Trevor waited 40 minutes before calling 911. I found Brenda, the night nurse, crying in the hospital bathroom. Brenda admitted Trevor threatened her immigration status to make her spy on me. Brenda agreed to testify. Bethany, the caregiver, reached out to me with guilt. She revealed Trevor hired her specifically to neglect Alyssa and document my reactions. She provided text messages from Trevor instructing her. At the final custody hearing, Trevor's lawyer Melissa seemed confident. She presented Trevor as the stable provider and me as an unemployed emotional mess. I represented myself and systematically presented my evidence. I showed financial records proving Trevor emptied accounts while I used my savings for Alyssa's needs. I presented medical records showing every appointment I attended versus Trevor's absence. Brenda testified about Trevor's threats and his lack of knowledge about Alyssa's basic care needs. Bethany provided texts of Trevor instructing her to harm Alyssa to frame me. I showed security footage from my phone of Trevor practicing his lies before the work function. The judge asked Trevor to demonstrate changing Alyssa's ventilator filter. He could not even identify which machine was the ventilator. Melissa tried to object, but the judge demanded she sit down. Hospital records confirmed Trevor delayed calling 911 during Alyssa's emergency. The judge granted me full custody with supervised visitation for Trevor. He ordered Trevor to pay 5 years of back support calculating from when I quit my medical career. Trevor was reported to the Bar Association for using his law knowledge to abuse his family. His firm terminated him for embarrassment to their reputation. Melissa was investigated for ethics violations for representing her affair partner. I returned to complete my final year of residency with a special schedule accommodating Alyssa's needs. The hospital provided on-site care for Alyssa during my shifts, recognizing my dedication. Trevor's supervised visits revealed he never learned Alyssa's care routine. Alyssa now used an advanced communication device to advocate for herself and her mother. I specialized in treating children with traumatic injuries, bringing me full circle. Trevor worked at a small insurance firm doing paperwork. His former colleagues avoided him at legal conferences. I established a foundation providing respite care for parents of severely disabled children, ensuring no parent faced what I endured alone. The foundation's first year exceeded all expectations. We helped over 200 families navigate the complex world of caring for severely disabled children. Every success story reminded me why I'd fought so hard to rebuild my life. But Trevor couldn't stand seeing me thrive. His supervised visits with Alyssa became increasingly problematic. The court-appointed supervisor, Catherine, documented concerning behaviors. Trevor would arrive late, spend most visits on his phone, and make passive-aggressive comments about my fancy new career. When Catherine reminded him to focus on Alyssa, he'd complain about the unfair supervision requirements. One Saturday morning, Trevor showed up with an expensive tablet for Alyssa. The supervisor noted he hadn't asked about her communication device preferences or consulted her therapy team. When Alyssa struggled with the unfamiliar interface, Trevor grew frustrated. He grabbed her hand roughly, trying to force her fingers to swipe correctly. Alyssa's distress signals went unnoticed by him, but Catherine intervened immediately. The incident report detailed Trevor's complete lack of understanding about Alyssa's physical limitations. He'd insisted she was being stubborn when her paralysis prevented the movements he demanded. Catherine recommended additional parenting classes focused on special needs children. Trevor refused, claiming the requirement was persecution. My residency supervisor, Dr. Jonathan Chen, became an unexpected ally. He'd witnessed my dedication firsthand and offered flexible scheduling when Alyssa needed extra care. During a particularly challenging rotation, he pulled me aside. His own daughter had cerebral palsy, and he understood the unique pressures I faced. He connected me with hospital resources I hadn't known existed. Trevor's behavior at the insurance firm grew increasingly erratic. A former colleague, Nathan, reached out to warn me. Trevor had been telling coworkers elaborate lies about our situation. He claimed I'd stolen his money, turned his daughter against him, and destroyed his legal career through false accusations. Nathan knew the truth from mutual friends at the law firm and thought I should document these statements. The foundation's success attracted media attention. A local news station wanted to feature our work during Disability Awareness Month. I hesitated, knowing Trevor would react badly to positive coverage, but the foundation's board convinced me the exposure would help more families. We scheduled the interview for a Tuesday afternoon when Trevor would be at work. The interview went beautifully. Alyssa demonstrated her communication device, advocating eloquently for disability rights. Several families we'd helped shared their stories. The segment aired that evening to overwhelming community support. Donations poured in, and volunteer applications tripled overnight. Trevor's response was swift and vindictive. He filed a complaint with the medical board claiming I was using my position to exploit vulnerable families. The baseless accusation required a formal response. Dr. Chen and the hospital's legal team supported me completely. The investigation found no merit to Trevor's claims, but the process was exhausting. Meanwhile, Melissa's ethics investigation had uncovered additional misconduct. She'd been manipulating billing records and overcharging clients for years. Trevor's case had simply been the most egregious example. Her law license was suspended pending a full review. Without Melissa's protection, Trevor's remaining legal connections evaporated. Bethany reached out again, this time with more disturbing information. She'd kept copies of all Trevor's communications, including emails where he'd discussed plans to escalate his harassment. He'd researched ways to trigger medical emergencies in disabled children that would appear accidental. Bethany had quit immediately after reading those messages but hadn't known who to tell. I took Bethany's evidence to Catherine, who elevated it to family court immediately. The judge ordered a psychological evaluation evaluation for Trevor. The court-appointed psychologist, Dr. Catherine Mills, specialized in high-conflict custody cases. Her evaluation process would take several weeks, during which Trevor's visits were suspended entirely. Alyssa flourished without the stress of Trevor's visits. Her medical team noted improvements in her overall health and communication abilities. She began participating in online support groups for disabled youth, becoming a powerful advocate for others. Her resilience inspired me daily. The foundation partnered with the hospital to create a comprehensive resource center. We offered everything from respite care coordination to equipment loans. Families no longer had to navigate the system alone. Each success story strengthened my resolve to prevent others from experiencing what we'd endured. Trevor's psychological evaluation revealed troubling patterns. Dr. Mills documented narcissistic traits, inability to empathize with Alyssa's needs, and a persistent pattern of blame shifting. She recommended against unsupervised visits indefinitely and suggested Trevor complete intensive therapy before any custody reconsideration. His response was predictable, but still shocking. Trevor began stalking my work schedule, showing up at the hospital during my shifts. Security had to escort him out multiple times. He'd wait in the parking garage, trying to confront me about the conspiracy against him. The hospital obtained a restraining order after the 5th incident. Lauren finally felt safe enough to reconnect. Trevor's friend at the school district had been transferred, removing the threat to her job. She apologized for abandoning us and threw herself into supporting the foundation. Her connections in education helped us develop programs for disabled children in schools. Brenda became one of our strongest advocates. Her testimony had been crucial in exposing Trevor's manipulation, and she wanted to help other healthcare workers recognize similar situations. We created training modules for medical professionals about identifying family abuse dynamics in special needs cases. The foundation's 2nd anniversary gala was a massive success. We'd helped over 500 families and established satellite programs in 3 neighboring counties. Alyssa gave a speech using her communication device that brought the entire room to tears. She spoke about resilience, love, and the power of believing in yourself despite others' limitations. Trevor wasn't invited, but he tried to crash the event anyway. Security recognized him immediately and quietly escorted him out before he could cause a scene. Several guests who knew our story commented on how pathetic he looked, disheveled and muttering about injustice. His fall from respected attorney to pariah was complete. My residency graduation approached with mixed emotions. I'd overcome so much to reach this point, but the journey had been nothing like I'd imagined as a bright-eyed medical student. Dr. Chen offered me a permanent position in the pediatric trauma unit. The schedule would accommodate Alyssa's needs while letting me pursue my passion for helping injured children. Trevor's child support payments became increasingly sporadic. He claimed financial hardship, but Nathan informed me Trevor had been bragging about hidden offshore accounts. I documented everything and filed for enforcement. The court garnished his wages directly, ensuring Alyssa received the support she deserved. The medical board sent a formal letter commending my work with disabled families. Trevor's complaint had backfired spectacularly, drawing attention to my advocacy instead. Several board members requested presentations about our foundation's innovative approaches to family support. Alyssa's communication abilities continued improving with new technology. She began writing poetry about her experiences, sharing her unique perspective on life with paralysis. Her English teacher submitted one poem to a national contest without telling us. When Alyssa won first place, her joy was infectious. Trevor's supervised visits resumed with a new supervisor after he completed court-ordered therapy. The therapist's report was lukewarm at best, noting minimal progress and persistent externalization of blame. Still, the court believed in giving parents chances to improve. The new supervisor, Kathy, was even stricter than Catherine. During his first visit back, Trevor immediately complained about the foundation's success. He accused me of using Alyssa's disability for personal gain, ignoring the hundreds of families we'd helped. When Alyssa tried to share her poetry award, Trevor dismissed it as participation trophy nonsense. Kathy documented every dismissive comment. The foundation received a major grant from a national disability advocacy organization. We could finally hire full-time staff and expand our respite care program. I stepped back from day-to-day operations to focus on my medical career and Alyssa's care, though I remained board president. Trevor's insurance firm downsized, and he was among the first let go. His reputation in the legal community meant no law firms would hire him. He eventually found work at a debt collection agency, a far cry from his previous prestigious position. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who knew our story. Melissa's ethics violations resulted in permanent disbarment. She moved out of state to avoid the professional humiliation. Trevor lost his last ally in the legal system. His isolation was entirely self-imposed, but he continued blaming everyone else for his circumstances. Our foundation's innovative approaches attracted national attention. I was invited to speak at medical conferences about integrating family support into pediatric care. Alyssa often joined via video link, sharing her perspective as both a patient and advocate. Her insights changed how many doctors approached disabled children's care. Trevor's visits grew more contentious. He'd arrive angry about some perceived slight and spend the entire time complaining. Kathy documented his failure to engage meaningfully with Alyssa. He never asked about her interests, medical needs, or daily life. The visits became something Alyssa dreaded rather than anticipated. I completed my residency with honors, officially becoming Dr. Sally. The title felt surreal after everything we'd overcome. Alyssa insisted on attending the ceremony, beaming with pride as I walked across the stage. Trevor wasn't invited and didn't attempt to attend. The foundation launched a mentorship program pairing experienced caregivers with newly diagnosed families. The program's success led to replication in hospitals nationwide. We'd created something beautiful from our pain, transforming trauma into hope for others. Trevor's final supervised visit was a disaster. He arrived intoxicated intoxicated, though he tried to hide it. Kathy immediately terminated the visit and called the police. His arrest for violating custody orders while intoxicated marked the end of any pretense about his fitness as a father. The court suspended all visits indefinitely. As I prepared for my first day as an attending physician, I reflected on our journey. The scared woman who'd given up her dreams to care for her paralyzed daughter had evolved into someone stronger than I'd ever imagined possible. Alyssa had grown into a brilliant, compassionate young woman despite every obstacle. The foundation's work continued expanding, touching thousands of lives. We'd built a community where no parent faced the isolation and manipulation I'd endured. Trevor's attempts to destroy us had ultimately led to creating something that would outlast us all. His legacy was one of failure and bitterness. Ours was one of resilience, love, and hope. The morning after Trevor's arrest changed everything. I arrived at the hospital for my first attending shift to find security footage of Trevor attempting to enter the pediatric ward at 3 a.m. He'd been turned away by night security, but not before creating a scene that required police intervention. The hospital administration upgraded their security protocols and flagged Trevor's photo at all entrances. Alyssa's poetry collection caught the attention of a publisher specializing in disability narratives. They offered her a book deal with a modest advance. Trevor somehow learned about it through his remaining connections and immediately demanded half the proceeds, claiming parental rights. The publisher's legal team shut down his attempts, citing the custody arrangement and his suspended visitation. Dr. Chen introduced me to a colleague whose son had recently become paralyzed in a diving accident. The family was drowning in medical bills and emotional turmoil. I connected them with our foundation's resources, and watching their relief reminded me why we'd built this support network. The father broke down crying when I explained that respite care was available at no cost. Trevor's debt collection job lasted 3 weeks. Nathan heard through mutual acquaintances that Trevor had been caught falsifying collection records to inflate his commission. The company fired him immediately and threatened prosecution. Without Melissa's legal expertise to protect him, Trevor faced the consequences alone. During Alyssa's routine medical checkup, her neurologist noted improved muscle tone in her index finger. The same finger she'd used to signal her distress at Trevor's party years ago now showed increased voluntary movement. We began intensive therapy focusing on that small but significant progress. Alyssa approached each session with determination that humbled her entire care team. The foundation's board meeting revealed we'd outgrown our current structure. We needed to incorporate as a nonprofit to handle the increasing donations and expand our programs. I spent evenings after hospital shifts working with lawyers to establish proper governance. Unlike Trevor's legal manipulations, these documents would protect vulnerable families. Bethany appeared at my office unexpectedly. She'd been carrying guilt about her role in Trevor's schemes and wanted to make amends beyond her testimony. She offered to volunteer with the foundation, using her caregiver experience to train others in recognizing neglect and manipulation. Her insider knowledge would help us develop better screening protocols. Trevor's former law firm faced scrutiny after multiple employees came forward about the toxic culture that had enabled his behavior. The senior partners who'd promoted him despite knowing about his treatment of our family quietly retired. The firm underwent restructuring, implementing new policies about personal conduct and family responsibilities. Alyssa's communication device company invited her to beta test their newest model with advanced predictive text and eye tracking capabilities. She spent hours mastering the technology, her excitement palpable as she discovered new ways to express herself. Her feedback helped the company refine features specifically for young users with paralysis. I encountered one of Trevor's former colleagues at a medical conference. She pulled me aside to share that Trevor had been reaching out to old contacts, desperate for employment references. Each person he contacted had declined, having heard about his spectacular fall from grace. His professional network had completely dissolved. The foundation received an unexpected donation from Trevor's elderly parents. They'd been estranged from him for years, but had followed our story through mutual acquaintances. Their note expressed deep shame about their son's actions and hoped that their contribution might help other families avoid similar suffering. I struggled with accepting money connected to Trevor, but ultimately decided it could serve a positive purpose. Brenda expanded her advocacy work, speaking at nursing schools about recognizing coercion in healthcare settings. Her presentations included our story as a case study, teaching future nurses to identify red flags when family members attempt to manipulate medical staff. Several hospitals adopted her training curriculum. During a particularly challenging shift, I treated a young girl with spinal injuries from a car accident. Her parents' shock and grief felt achingly familiar. I spent extra time explaining the long road ahead, connecting them with our foundation before they even left the hospital. Watching hope replace despair in their eyes validated every struggle we'd endured. Trevor's arrest record prevented him from passing background checks for most employment. Nathan informed me that Trevor had been spotted working cash jobs at a moving company, loading trucks for minimum wage. The man who'd once worn designer suits to impress his colleagues now struggled to afford basic necessities. Alyssa's book launch exceeded all expectations. The small bookstore event attracted hundreds of supporters from the disability community. She used her communication device to read excerpts, her words filling the room with hard-won wisdom about resilience and self-advocacy. Local news covered the event, focusing on her achievements rather than our family drama. The foundation's respite care program expanded to include overnight facilities. Parents could leave their disabled children in capable hands while taking desperately needed breaks. We'd learned from my experience that caregiver burnout often led to vulnerability to manipulation. Regular respite prevented families from reaching that breaking point. Lauren became the foundation's education coordinator, developing programs for schools to better support disabled students and their families. Her work ensured that teachers recognized signs of family stress and could connect parents with resources before situations deteriorated. Several school districts adopted our protocols as standard practice. I received a letter from Diane, the original custody evaluator. She'd followed our case and expressed deep regret about initially falling for Trevor's manipulation. She'd since specialized in high-conflict custody evaluations involving disabled children, using our case to inform her approach. Her letter included a donation to the foundation. Trevor attempted to contact me through a burner phone, leaving rambling voicemails about reconciliation and second chances. I documented each message and forwarded them to the police, who added them to his growing file of restraining order violations. His desperation had evolved into something darker and more concerning. The hospital promoted me to head of pediatric trauma after just 6 months as an attending. The position came with increased responsibilities, but also more flexibility to balance Alyssa's care. Dr. Chen noted that my unique perspective made me invaluable in treating families facing similar crises. Melissa's disbarment made national legal news as an example of ethics violations in family law. Law schools began using her case in professional responsibility courses, teaching future attorneys about the dangers of personal involvement with clients. Her spectacular downfall served as a cautionary tale throughout the legal community. Alyssa's physical therapy yielded unexpected progress. She gained limited movement in her right index and middle fingers, enough to operate specialized switches independently. Her therapist designed custom exercises to maximize this newfound ability. Each tiny improvement represented hours of grueling work that Alyssa approached with unwavering determination. The foundation's annual report showed we'd helped over 1,000 families in just 2 years. Our model had been replicated in 12 states, with more expressing interest. What began as my desperate attempt to find support had evolved into a national movement changing how healthcare systems approach disabled children's families. Trevor's moving company job ended when he injured his back lifting furniture. Without health insurance or workers' compensation, he faced the medical system from the other side. Nathan mentioned that Trevor had been seen at free clinics, waiting hours for basic care. The irony of his situation wasn't lost on those who knew our history. I was invited to testify before a state legislative committee about support services for disabled children's families. My testimony focused on practical solutions rather than personal grievances. The committee approved funding for pilot programs based on our foundation's model. Real change was happening because we'd refused to let trauma define us. Alyssa started online college courses in disability studies and creative writing. The university provided extensive accommodations, and she thrived in the academic environment. Her professors praised her unique insights and powerful voice. She planned to combine her interests into advocacy through storytelling. The foundation hired its first executive director, allowing me to step back from daily operations while remaining involved strategically. The new director had personal experience as a sibling of a disabled child and brought fresh perspectives to our programs. Our board meetings focused on expansion rather than survival. Trevor's latest attempt to regain relevance involved starting a blog about fathers' rights in custody cases. The posts were rambling, bitter screeds that gained no traction. His few followers quickly disappeared when they realized he offered no actual insight or support, only blame and self-pity. Brenda received a Nursing Excellence Award partly due to her advocacy work. She'd transformed from Trevor's unwilling accomplice into a powerful voice for ethical healthcare.